So box office is open Monday through Friday, 10 to 5, and they are more than happy to help you with any of those kinds of questions. If it's a complimentary ticket offer through volunteer services, as I usually remind you in an email, those questions should come to us because when the box office is filling out complimentary ticket offers for staff and volunteers, it takes up a lot of their time that they haven't really planned on. And so it's super helpful if you send all of those questions to me. Okay, next, if you can't remove yourself on Volgistics. I know I've repeated this many, many times in tips and in our newsletters, but it warrants being repeated again. Please, if you can't remove yourself from a shift that you can no longer do, and that you do that by clicking, of course, on the calendar square where you see the shift. Within 7 days, there's an auto setting on Volgistics that doesn't allow you to remove yourself. If you can't remove yourself, always 100% call the hotline and speak very clearly your first and last name. Your volunteer number is helpful. And then also specifically what shift. So if it's, a Broadway on the weekends, remember we have multiple shows each day. So always say your full name, your volunteer number, what specific show you're calling out of. And then what happens, of course, is the on-site staff will remove you off the physical copy, the attendance sheet that we print out for them. If it's 7 days out and I haven't printed out the sheet yet, you'll right away see your name removed or you'll see it off your calendar. Don't worry if it's the weekend and you still see it there. All that means is that Joan and I haven't logged into work and we haven't removed you on our end. The most important thing, though, that you have to keep in mind is the on-site staff received the message. And that way you will not get a no-show, because volunteers who have repeated no-shows can be asked to leave the program and have an inactive status. So we don't want that to happen. So please make sure you always use that hotline, 860-987-6093, and press number 2 to leave your message. And then the volunteer commitment, it's a 10-shift minimum per season. The season runs July 1st through the end of June. So make sure and plan accordingly that you hit your 10-show minimum. Obviously, there are exceptions to that rule. If you are, in any way in danger of not getting 10 shifts in by the end of the season and you're concerned about that, just email us, because the final question, which is Joan Delaney's favorite quote, is that she shares with all the new volunteers at orientation, is communication is key. It's so important that we know exactly, what's preventing you from doing the 10-shift minimum so that we can hopefully be of assistance or at least notate that, because there are exceptions, as I said. So those are the general reminders. And so now I think the next screen is going to talk about the agenda for today. We're going to have 2 parts to our program. The webinar is really just to inform our front of house staff and our volunteers, especially on new things, so that you can help patrons know about these new things as well. The first topic is accessibility services at the Bushnell. We obviously over the years have provided several. There are some new updates that Kat is going to explain, and they're, very exciting. Some of them, I don't know that, a lot of theaters even offer some of the things that we now will be offering. So she's going to go through accessibility. Like I said, if you have any questions during the webinar, just use the Q&A. And then when Kat gets to the end of her presentation, she's going to go through the Q&As. If there aren't any, then we'll move right on to the next portion of our evening. And that is going to be with tour guide and fellow volunteer Joe Marino. He is going to explain to you a new and exciting tour project that the tour guides have been working on called the Bushnell Tours to Go. He's going to show a little bit of kind of the demo of it if, folks request a tour to go. And then just like with the accessibility, there'll be a time for Q&A. And again, don't worry if you don't want to ask questions during the live webinar, you can also look forward to the email from me with the link, and also we'll get back to you in a timely manner. So that's all that I have for you tonight. Looking forward to seeing everybody at the Bushnell, especially during Frozen, and also some of the tours that are happening this month for volunteers. And I turn it over to Kat.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeanette. Appreciate that. Hi, everybody. Again, welcome to 2024 and our annual webinar for our front of house staff and our volunteers. So my section on today's webinar will be going over all things accessibility at the Bushnell. I will be focusing mainly on, I would say, like 2 portions of our accessible services. And then if we have time, I will go into the rest of it. But all of our accessible services can be found on our website. If you go to the visit tab and then accessibility, it has everything broken down from there. The sensory friendly programming has its own page, and ASL has their own page as well. And then the Bushnell will continue to add on more and more services every single year. I kind of have like a 5-year plan out on when to add what services, depending on finances and timing of shows and things of that nature. When patrons are on site, they can also visit the customer relations desk, which is on the Belding first floor lobby, right outside of the Belding Theater. If they have any questions on the accessible services we have, of course, they can always contact the Bushnell via phone, email, or social media. Our largest accessible programs right now are the American Sign Language program, sensory friendly and relaxed programming, audio description, assisted listening, and mobility seating. So the first thing I kind of want to talk about is what is at customer relations. So there's a lot of things that's accessible services and not, but here's a small list of kind of for you guys what is at customer relations with our amazing, lovely Beth as our little model. So we have assisted listening devices, audio description devices, cough drops, earplugs, first aid and AED, local dining options for our patrons. People can find their lost and found items. There's also marketing materials for upcoming shows. We have Braille, digital, and large print prompters when prompters are available. We also have new sensory bags, which contain noise canceling headphones, sunglasses, and fidgets. I'll be talking a little bit about that later in the presentation. And we also have sensory friendly communication supports, again, which will be talked about a little bit later in the presentation. So one of the first things I kind of want to talk about is audio description. We added that, I believe it was the beginning of last year with Aladdin. We did a temporary rehearsal with Hamilton the season before. Again, the first bullet is if you want to take a look at the audio description page on the Bushnell's website. But all Broadways have one audio described performance, and typically it's going to be the Sunday evening, 6:30. If it's a multi-week run, it will again, typically be in that first week because that is typically the subscription week. Last season, we had a bunch of Broadways that did not have a Sunday evening performance. So we had to, kind of readjust and either do Sunday matinee or Saturday evening. But for the standard is the Sunday evening at 6:30, but always visit the website to see if there's any updates on that. Patrons can request, that is not supposed to say interpreter, that's supposed to say describer, for Mortenson Hall performances only. At this time, we only have audio description for the Mortenson side and not the Belding. Again, that is part of my 5-year plan to add to the Belding Theater. We do ask for anyone requesting a describer, do that at least 4 weeks in advance of the show. They can do that by either calling the box office or emailing info@bushnell.org. So audio description devices. So audio description itself provides patrons who are blind or have low vision audio narration of the key visual components happening on stage. So that's kind of the basis of what's happening. So basically they will go and get a device and headphones at customer relations for the specific scheduled audio described performances. The headphones they can use are either over the ear, they have, which we have options for them, the disposable earbuds that we have, or they can bring their own that has the standard auxiliary jack that can plug directly into the device. So the devices are first come, first served, and available to patrons at no charge. All they have to do is provide an ID, just like they would for the assisted listening devices. We do ask them that they just email the box office and let us know that they are coming in. So patrons who are utilizing this service can purchase a seat anywhere in the theater, because audio description and those devices can get service again anywhere in the Mortensen Theater. So they can get seats anywhere, but for us just to kind of know how many audio description devices we'll need as opposed to assisted listening, we want to make sure that we have those kind of set aside for these patrons. So we do ask them to reserve and just let us know, so I can kind of give a count to the customer relations rep. But if they don't tell us, that's usually fine too. We have enough set aside for these patrons to be able to use them. Again, the patrons can be seated anywhere in the Mortensen to use the device, and the patron, when they put on the device and they get everything all set up and working, they will hear music that's going to be kind of played while everything is kind of being set up. So about half an hour to 45 minutes before, they can put on the device and start to hear music so that they know that it's working. They can play with the sound. And then about 20 minutes before the show starts, the describer will come on and kind of set the stage. So they will do as much describing as possible in that 20 minutes beforehand, so that they're not doing as much when the show is actually happening, because they really want to talk in between the lines. Because for them, what mainly happens is that they will have one ear in and one ear out. So one ear listening to the device, listening to the describer, and the other ear is listening live to the performance. So they're not hearing the feed of the performance in their ear like they would assistive listening. And basically the describer, again, in that 20 minutes is going to give as much description as possible. So they're going to do the whole setup of the stage, what the majority of the cast is wearing and what the time is like and the lighting and everything that kind of is so visual. So next we are going to take a look at the audio description devices. The first picture is just a little bit about all the different buttons on the device themselves. So the assistive listening and the audio description devices are the exact same device. What makes it different is the screen on the front. So as of right now, this one says describe. So that means this device right now was able to, you're able to hear the audio description. So the two arrows above and below the screen are volume up and volume down. There are two auxiliary inputs, and that's where the headphones, or if it's assistive listening, where the induction loop goes. There's a power button at the top, and that little round button on the front is the lock and unlock button. The next picture is a picture of the device with the disposable earbuds plugged in. And the third picture is the device with the picture of the reusable headphones plugged in. And then I will be showing a little bit more in-depth videos on how to use the devices and playing around with them a little bit. And so we'll get to that after the assisted listening device part. So assisted listening devices amplify the sound of the show feed. So a little bit different than the audio description where you're hearing the describer. This, you're hearing the direct feed of the show, so you can hear that more clear and louder in your ears. So the assisted listening devices, again, are available at customer service, at the customer relations desk. They are first come, first serve, free to our patrons. All they do is give a photo ID of some sort. But the difference is assistive listening is available for all performances in both the Mortensen Hall and the Belding Theater. So again, patrons can be seated anywhere in the Mortensen Hall and the Belding Theater to use this device. And again, the patron will hear music when they put on the device, so they can kind of figure out and make sure that the device is working and make sure that the volume is kind of where they want. Okay. And then again, just showing a little bit of what it all looks like. So again, these are the two pictures on the left are just looking at the different buttons, which again is the same as the other one, but you'll just see that each device is different because they are put on the Mortensen channel and the Belding channel, which is for assistive listening for each of those devices and for each of those buildings. And then again, what the device looks like with disposable earbuds, the reusable headphones, and also the a lanyard. So if they want not to clip it on, they can put the lanyard on, and also the induction loop. So, and of course, feel free to test out the assistive listening devices during any of your shifts here at the Bushnell. The one thing I do say is just make sure that it's once Act 1 starts or once the performance starts, because we want to make sure that we leave as many devices for our patrons as possible. But if you do want to test one out, please be sure to tell your floor director, tell your house manager if you're going to step out for a second. or when you're here for a tour the next couple of days or the next couple of months, feel free to just to, we can go over and grab some of them from custom relations, just play around with them. There may not be any sound or feed coming through because we don't have a performance, but you can at least play with the buttons and learn how to change the channel. So the next slide is going to show you parts of the device. So I am just going to let you watch this very short video just to take a look at some of the different buttons and how they're used a little bit. And then there'll be a second video in a little more detail. Okay, and then again, this next one just kind of goes a little bit more into changing the channel and going up and down with the volume. So I will play that for you guys. Okay, so moving along, that's kind of part of the assisted listening device. Is the next part of it is the induction loop. So the induction loop connects to our device and provides amplification of sound for patrons with a telecoil or T-coil equipped hearing aid or cochlear implants. On our end, we are unable to tell if a patron's hearing aid has T-coil at all or telecoil. If they're unsure, they would have to contact their audiologist and inquire if they have it and also ask how to turn it on. Some people have a manual switch on the device, on the ear, on the hearing aid itself, or it could also be part of their app to turn it on, or the audiologist may have to turn it on. But we are unable to do that on our end for the patron. So that would have to be between them and their audiologist. And the patron would need to turn on the telecoil or T-coil switch to connect to the loop. If a hearing aid is T-coil equipped, there is, again, a button on it of some sort. Or there could also be a remote that can turn it on as well. If a patron has a hearing aid, but they don't know if it's telecoil or they're not sure how to turn it on, we should be offering them either headphones or earbuds to use the amplification, to use our device. Or as of right now, we have the Sennheiser Mobile Connect system, which we only have as a demo until the end of Frozen. The hope is to get that by next season, Right now we're demoing it just to see if it works and to make sure we have enough access points to make sure that it's being able to be used for every patron and for every seat in the Mortensen as of right now. And then hopefully we'll get Mortensen and then Belding kind of within the next year. Again, hope, don't promise anyone anything. I'm still crossing my fingers, but we will have it through the end of Frozen. So for anybody that has a hearing aid or has a hearing aid without a T-coil switch, or for anyone really, even if they're really good with their phones, they want to use their phones, they'll be able to use the Sennheiser app. So the next stage is I'm going to be talking a little bit about that, but I want to go over these pictures. So again, the induction loop is that picture in the top left-hand corner, and you can see the gentleman who is wearing the device with the induction loop. So that is how it should be worn, whether it's with the induction loop or if they're just using it without induction loop with their headphones. So that will either clip on, there's a clip on the back of the device. So you can either clip on the front of their shirt, or again, they can use the lanyard to help it just stay right here. So you want it to stay right. The device has to be facing forward, kind of at the center of the chest to get the best signal. So there's the least amount of static and the most amount of clearness. So they kind of want to make sure that they kind of stay pretty still. Nothing is blocking it, so they can be out facing the stage. Again, that's what it's looked like with the induction loop plugged into both sides. And if they need a little bit more neck room, or like a little bit more length around the head, you can add in an extender. So it plugs into one of those aux inputs, and then the induction loop is kind of connected into there. You can kind of see it a little bit. So I'm going to next move on to the Sennheiser Mobile Connect, and we will talk a little bit about that. And then I'll also show a video on how that works. So again, this is just so you guys are aware of this system that we're currently demoing. You don't need to worry about showing a patron how to use it on their phones. If anything, just send them to CR. There is this sign right here on the right side of this PowerPoint slide right here. This is the signage that's actually at CR. So it kind of gives you a very simple 1, 2, 3 step on what to do to get this on your phone. They don't need a device. They don't need anything. They just need a phone and their own headphones. That's the big thing. They need their own headphones. We are working to create a little half sheet that gives more detail instruction to the patrons if they're having trouble. You'll see a screen recording of a phone in the next slide. So it'll be something similar to that to help them go through. So a little bit on the Sennheiser Mobile Connect app. So the Sennheiser Mobile Connect is an app-based accessible solution that integrates assistive and focused listening into the patron's personal smartphone. So again, there's no need to go to customer relations or get a device or anything like that. So as long as they have their own phone, their own headphones, or a Bluetooth enabled hearing aid, they can use this. So again, we are demoing this until the end of Frozen, which is February 17th, for Mortensen Hall performances only. All this information can be found at the customer relations desk on site. There are 2 steps in order for a patron to use this system. Number 1 is download the app, which they can do by scanning the QR code or looking it up themselves. So again, the QR code is at customer relations. They scan that, download the app. And then the second part is connecting to the assisted listening Wi-Fi network and putting in the password. So those 2 things, they're good to go. Again, the video on the next slide will show them how that process works. Patrons must have a newer, updated smartphone, can't be super old, can't be on an old version. They must have their own headphones that are compatible with their smartphone. So whether it's something that plugs in directly to their phones or is Bluetooth enabled with their phones, whether it's headphones or a hearing aid. Please note that when you are using anything that's Bluetooth connected, so whether it's your Bose headphones or your Beats or your AirPods, even a Bluetooth enabled hearing aid, there is always going to be a delay. So if somebody doesn't have a hearing aid and wants to use the Sennheiser mobile app, we do suggest using something that plugs in, using headphones that plug in. It is a way better experience. There's just something that, that just kind of can't be, as of right now, that can't be enhanced at this point. There is going to be a little bit of a delay. At this point, there's no limit on how many patrons can use this system, which is amazing. As of right now, we only have a certain amount of devices, so we are limited to how many people can use. But with this, it's kind of infinite at this point. If you do decide to try this out yourselves at one of the Frozen performances, please give us your feedback. Let us know how it works, because then I've been forwarding that off to the people who run the system. So again, this is just for you to be aware of it. Don't get, nervous or overwhelmed by the next video. This just shows how the patrons through their phone will download the app and connect to the Wi-Fi. So we're going to take a look at that right now. So I'm going to play this video. It's just a screen recording of an iPhone connecting to both the app and then the Wi-Fi, and I'm going to talk a little bit over it as it goes. So again, the first thing they want to do to scan the QR code is open up their camera. That's how you do it on an iPhone. At least you scan the QR code and it will pop up automatically. You'll press the little cloud button, or sometimes it's a little arrow, and that's going to download the app to the patron's phone. So then once the app is downloaded, then you're going to go to the Wi-Fi settings of the phone, and you're going to find the Wi-Fi system that says assistive listening. So you're going to click on that, and you're going to put in the password, hear the show, which that password is written on the signage that is at customer relations. So it's not a secret as to what the password is, but it's called hear the show. And then you can see once the blue check mark is by the Wi-Fi is then connected to assistive listening. So now you go back and you want to open the app. So you're going to press allow. You're going to say allow sharing data. You're going to agree to the terms and conditions, and then press agree. And then now you're in the app. So now you're going to press Bushnell show, and then you're going to press listen. And now this is what it's going to look like if somebody is connected to assisted listening for a Broadway right now. So they can play around with the volume and all that kind of stuff. They can pause it and play it. But that's just kind of what it looks like. Really easy. The best thing about it is once they are connected to the app and the Wi-Fi, they're good to go. They don't have to come back to customer relations, scan the QR code again. It will come in, they'll come into the building and automatically be connected to that app. They just have to make sure they're connected to that Wi-Fi. And that's pretty much it. So the more we educate our patrons, again, hoping that we get this permanently installed in our building, the more accessible it is for our patrons. They don't have to kind of get up and get a new device and all that kind of stuff. So fingers crossed. So again, we're demoing this to the end of Frozen. If you have any questions, again, put that in the chat and we'll be answering them at the end or in the form. So next one, I'm just going to be talking a little bit about sensory friendly, American Sign Language, and some physical accessibility of the building. So I've got about another 15 minutes. So I'm going to kind of speed through the rest of this, and then we'll get to Q&A if there's any questions. So this is a little video about the history of our sign language, our American Sign Language program that was done, I think, right before COVID. So We love that video. So yeah, that's just some of our interpreting teams. So for Grinch, what they were covering at that point was the first time we've ever had a deaf interpreter. So most of our interpreters are hearing so they can hear the words on stage and then interpret them for the audience. But in this case, Patrick was interpreting for the Grinch, and he is deaf, and he had a person sitting in front of him. So Mary Sue was sitting in front of him and was his feed. So she was telling him, was signing to him what's happening on stage, that he knew the correct cues and the correct timing, what was happening. So it's extremely difficult. It's so much more work, so much more time, but it's really important because we love representation, and it's just amazing to see. So awesome. So American Sign Language, again, this first bullet is where you can find all information on our program and all of the upcoming ASL signed performances. So all Broadways have an ASL interpret performance, again, which is typically the Sunday evening, 6:30, first week in a multi-run. But again, if there's no Sunday evening, it can be moved. So always check the website for that. If there's a multi-week run, sometimes we do add a second ASL performance. So specifically for Frozen, we will be interpreting the first Sunday along with the February 14th, the Valentine's Day weekday matinee for the students at ASD. Patrons will receive an interpreted video before attending the performance, giving a brief synopsis of the show and any details in terms of specific signs for characters. So instead of signing every letter for every character, they may just have a single sign for Elsa. So maybe it's a snowflake. If it's Anna, maybe it's something different. Who knows? So they go over that in that video that's sent out ahead of time. That comes through the marketing department. So I get it from the interpreter, and then I send it to marketing to be in the pre-visit emails for that specific performance. There's typically a specific section in the theater. So it's usually the front of section C is where the interpreters will be on stools and lit specifically with a specific spotlight that they get set ahead of before the show starts. And then there are usually volunteers who can also sign ASL, and they're usually assigned near that section so they can communicate with the patrons that are coming in. Excuse me. And you'll see the patrons sitting on the stools up front. Sometimes I think Bianca Del Rio is the only person that does this, and CT Forum, but sometimes you'll see the interpreters up on stage as well. Again, a patron can request an interpreter for any performance in any of our spaces. Again, we always ask at least 4 weeks in advance so we can ask the production so we can find somebody and all that kind of stuff, and they can study if there's a script. Again, they can call the box office or email us to put in that request. Next is sensory-friendly supports for all. So this is one of the newer services that we have here at the Bushnell. So again, the first bullet is at all sensory-friendly stuff. If you want to look at all the supports we provide, all the upcoming sensory-friendly relaxed performances, and all of our generic supports for all performances. So we have a couple of sensory-friendly performances throughout the season, but then there are also a lot of family-friendly events that we have and performances throughout the season. So I have started offering these sensory-friendly supports for all performances. So no matter what, whether you're coming in for a typical performance or sensory-friendly, you will be able to have supports that support anyone who is on the spectrum. If it's their first time here at the theater and they're anxious, these supports are for them. So you'll see this little signage on the right side of the screen. So that is the messaging and the signage that's at customer relations for all performances. So it's the 3 main parts of the sensory friendly supports that are for all performances that are the sensory bag, digital supports, and feeling free to take a break in any one of our lobby spaces. So for the sensory bags, they have noise canceling headphones, earplugs, sunglasses, fidgets, and communication supports in the bag. So there are 6 adult bags and 6 child bags. Adult and child are determined because of the size of the noise canceling headphones. So again, those bags are first come, first serve, and can be rented at no charge at the customer relations desk, again, by providing a picture ID. Patrons can then scan this QR code at customer relations desk that will show you a whole PDF, one single PDF of all digital supports to help with communication. So again, a communication board if they're nonverbal, a choice board. So if they're waiting and they don't know what to do, it kind of helps visually choose what they want to do with their time. There's also a visual timer to say, all right, we have 5 minutes until the show starts. What do you want to do? Do you want to go to the bathroom? Do you want to grab a snack? So again, it's very visual. There's a visual schedule on how to kind of navigate through the Bushnell through performance and also our Bushnell social story. And then let's see, the last one is, again, take a break. So patrons are free to exit the theater to utilize seating in any of our lobby spaces to take a break. I do understand that there are times where we may be in a hold. Again, it's one of those things where if it is a emergency or if they do need to exit because their child is feeling anxious or what have you, they can exit on their own if it's an emergency. And then again, just about our sensory friendly relaxed program in general. Who is it for? So they're for patrons who are on the autism spectrum, who have a sensory processing disorder, who have cognitive, social, mental disabilities, any type of sensory sensitivities, or just looking for a relaxed and judgment-free environment. So it is not excluding anybody. Everybody can come to this. It is such an amazing, relaxed, judgment-free zone for anyone who's ever worked one of these performances or events. They're amazing, and it's just amazing. So the specific programming will have lowered sound. If there's like flashing lights or really loud, scary parts, they'll kind of be diminished a little bit. The house lights will be on about 30%. Let's see, there will be a quiet space, flexible seating, there'll be limited crowds, a resource table, and experts on site. So our experts are special education professors from both Southern and University of St. Joseph's. And then the two pictures on the side, the top one is a picture of Lori Berkner performing. She did a typical performance in the Belding in the afternoon, and this is the sensory friendly performance she did for about 200-ish patrons in the Great Hall, which was amazing. It was great to have floor space for the kids to dance and play around. And then the bottom one is last year's, 2022's holiday open house. So that's our friend Noah and his dad Tom, and they're amazing. And they come to a lot of our events and they're just enjoying some of our crafts. So that's it on sensory friendly. Again, any questions on sensory friendly or ASL or anything else I discussed, just feel free to put in the chat and we will answer your questions after I am done, which I am almost done. And then this is a little bit about the physical accessibility of the Bushnell. So for parking, there are accessible parking spots in the state lot across the street, along with the parking garage on Buckingham. And then if the one on Capitol is open, that one also has accessible parking. We also have a pickup drop-off spot on Capitol Ave. So it's where valet used to be. So we have an A-frame now saying that's specifically for pickups and drop-offs. So that's going to be in the cutout in front of the courtyard on Capitol Ave. And then there's also valet on Clinton Street. Patrons now have accessible entrances on both sides of the building. So on the box office, the far right door is accessible. And on the Capitol Ave, the far left door is accessed by a ramp. So it's on the corner of Trinity and Capitol Ave. There is a ramp connecting the Belding first floor lobby to the Mortensen lobbies by the women's restroom. There's an accessible counter at the box office. All restrooms in the Belding Theater lobbies are wheelchair accessible. There's also inclusive restrooms. So that is Mortensen Hall Orchestra East, but it's not wheelchair accessible. There's the East Marquee off of the Grand Foyer and the family restroom on Belding third floor lobby. And again, there are elevators. The Belding elevator can access the Belding rear orchestra, Belding mezzanine, and Mortensen mezzanine. It cannot access the Mortensen balcony. And then the Mortensen elevator can access the Mortensen mezzanine and the balcony. And then accessible seating. So for the Mortensen Hall, the accessible seating is only on the orchestra level. We had to create accessible seating because when the building was built, it did not have accessible seating. So the only way for us to provide true accessible seating was to do it on the first level. So we have 6 seats that are held in the front center for patrons who have low vision. Box 5 row A is a row of removable seats for patrons who are using a mobility device. Box 5 row B, so that's the row behind that row, are companion seats. And then section B and F, row N, are removable seats, again, for patrons in wheelchairs and mobility devices. And section B and F, row Q, has extra legroom. So for patrons who use a walker, or maybe they have a broken leg or in a brace or something like that, they can use row Q. The Belding Theater, for the Belding Theater, accessible seats on both levels, so orchestra and mezzanine, because that was built a little bit later on. So we were able to kind of implement everything based on the ADA. So in the orchestra, again, there are 6 seats front and center for low vision. Section C and E, row L, have the removable seats for patrons in a wheelchair and mobility devices. And section C, row B, has extra legroom for patrons who are utilizing a cane, a walker, or braces. And then the mezzanine, section C and E, row A, have removable seats for patrons with wheelchairs and mobility devices. And boxes 1 and 2 also have removable seats if they want to use that as well. Oh, and then we also have larger 30-inch chairs that are available to replace any one of the removable chairs in any one of those accessible rows. And then mobility devices. These are some examples of mobility devices a patron may be using. We have walkers, wheelchairs, and rollators for our venue. So patrons who don't have one, who may not realize how far it is to get from the parking lot to the building to Morrison balcony, they can normally do and walk fine up and down stairs, but just the distance may be too much for them. We do have these devices on site and available for patrons to use when they are on site. So if anybody ever asks you for one or needs assistance, just let anyone in the front of house know. You can go over to customer relations, they have a radio there, or any of the front of house around you, and they can radio to get one of those devices. Now, again, patrons are not required to push a patron in a wheelchair. If someone needs assistance, just please find a front of house staff member and they will get somebody who is trained to assist somebody in a wheelchair. If you want to become trained and assist patrons in a wheelchair or when they need it, please email volunteers@bushel.org and we will send you all necessary training to get you up and trained to help patrons if needed. And then my last slide, and I think I'm only 2 minutes behind. Okay, we're going to go through this last slide. Okay, so mobility devices. Some patrons may need to have their mobility devices stored. Volunteers should, A, ask a patron if they can store their device. The device is an extension of that patron. So you wouldn't ask someone to take their leg or take their arm. That's part of their person. So you first want to make sure you ask permission to take their device. And then you want to tag their device. So we use kind of coat check tags. Those tags are available at both coat checks and at customer relations. And what you want to do is you want to write down the seat location on the portion that stays with the device, because just the number is not going to help you pair up the device with the patron in the case of an emergency. That patron is going to have difficulty coming over to you. So you want to make sure that you can make it most efficient for you to bring the device over to the patron. So that is putting down, maybe it's OBN for orchestra, section B, row N. So you can do that. You can always keep tags in your pocket if you want, so you're not running back and forth to the coat checks. And make sure you tell the patron exactly where their device will be stored, and ensure them that a volunteer will return their device to them at intermission if they need to, or at the end of the performance, or in the case of an evacuation. Just make sure that they know that. Where do you store mobility devices in the theater? So for Morrison Hall, if you're, again, I don't expect you to know this right now. We're going to have these, they're all written down in your volunteer sheets, I believe. But in Morrison Hall, for Orchestra West, you will store them in the Trinity Street closet, which can get a little tight. If not, you can bring them into the back, into the prom gallery. Orchestra East, so that's where the accessible door is. That's where you go out to the restrooms, to the building. You'll, behind the doors at the accessible ramps, those 2 big doors, you can fold them up, put them behind there. Again, you do not want to block the ramp. You can't block the doorway. So if that does get too full, you can bring the devices to Belding Theater Lobby Level 1 by the understair bar, fold them up, put them over there, or again in the back of the prom gallery. And then box 5, you're gonna bring all the devices, if needed, out to the prom gallery. For Belding Theater Orchestra West, which will be out towards the main part of the lobby where the elevators and the understair bar is, Again, you can use that building lobby 1 area if it's Orchestra West. Again, building lobby 1 area, make sure it's not in the hallway or blocking the hallway at all. Mezzanine west, along the wall in the mezzanine, you'll be able to see like there's a little bit of wall space where the booster seats are kept. And then mezzanine east, again, along the wall in the mezzanine. If you want to watch a tutorial on how to fold a mobility device, because there are different ways to fold a wheelchair, the walker, and the rollator. Jan Edmondson, which is one of our amazing volunteers, has done a how-to instruction video. You can find that video on the Volgistics homepage under links to watch that. So I am a little bit over, but I don't know how many questions we have, but this is now the Q&A section of the accessible portion. So a reminder, if you want to ask a question in the next 10-ish minutes or so, feel free to use the Q&A section. So there's on my end at least, there's a little Q&A icon at the top. If you click on that, it kind of brings in a little panel. If not, again, don't worry, because Jeanette will be sending out the link along with a form to ask your questions. And then all the questions that get asked later on, we will either be doing like a full email with everybody's, answers to all the questions, or if it's a little bit of a one-off or maybe a personal question, we may respond to you directly via email. So again, let's check and see what we've got for any questions. Okay, let's see. So we've got one. How do holds work for sensory breaks? So I think I had mentioned that a little bit before. So we understand that there are holds. So we are going to enforce a hold. But you can tell and see if somebody says, we really need to exit, they need to exit. It's just like in any case of any bathroom emergency or medical emergency, this is their own emergency. So if they need to exit, they're free to exit. If you say, oh, we're going to hold, please wait. They say, my son's really having a hard time. Can I please exit? Yes, of course. Like there are times where we kind of have to aid to the patron and realize that may be an emergency for them. And that's going to have to be okay. Next question is, if patrons say they want to keep their mobility devices with them, how does it stay with them? So it all depends on where they're seating. So if they're in one of those rows with removable seats, we are able to remove the chair. So we can remove the actual red or green velvet chair. We can move that. It takes a little bit of hard work. They're heavy. So you can bring that into one of those spaces, into a closet or into the prom gallery, and their device goes in place of that chair if that's the seat that they purchased. If there is extra leg room, and because there's in the orchestra, if they're in B and F, there is a little bit of space from the last seat to the wall. There may be space for them to keep their device right over there with them if it's their walker. If they really are like, nope, I'm in this seat and I'm keeping my device, but it's a typical seat, we may have to tell them, unfortunately, this seat was purchased. We can call the box office and see if there are other accessible seats available. If not, we just have to basically give them options, but that is for front of house to figure out. So if that ever happens, just please involve front of house on that. Let's see, I think I just got a new post. Please send the accessible seating slide to all volunteers. We will send the accessible seating slide to all volunteers. That slide was taken actually from an email that Jeanette already sent to all of the volunteers. So you guys do already have that. We can put that somewhere, but just know that was sent via email, I believe, for the November tip of the month. I'm not quite sure. And then it was also put into the newsletter as well. So next question is, if patron gets a walker from CR, do they need to return it to CR? Can they take it to parking lot? And then what happens? So ideally, if someone wants to take it, we don't have to return it back to CR. They'd have to return it back to a staff member of some sort. They can take it to the parking lot, but we ask them to please bring it back, or a front of house person or a volunteer should go with them to take it back with them. My suggestion would be to say to them, if you can, please utilize the pickup and drop off area. We'll wait here with, if it's somebody that's using the walker or the wheelchair, if they're with somebody else, have them get the car if it's possible. come to the cutout in the courtyard, have them wait there by the glass doors, and then their companion will park in the drop off, come through the glass doors, pick them up, and then head out through there. That's ideal. Sometimes it's not ideal. If you're having an issue with someone leaving with it, just let front of house know so they can keep an eye on looking for it. Let's see if there's anything else. When using your phone for assistance, how does a phone interfere with the performance with it may ring or something else? So I'm guessing that's in terms of the Sennheiser. So again, the Sennheiser app should only be used. So again, using the phone for the Sennheiser Mobile Connect app, you want to make sure that the patron has to be plugged into either their own headphones or Bluetooth headphones or their hearing aid. They can't just have it playing out loud because it will disturb somebody else. But with the headphones plugged into it, with the Bluetooth headphones, with the Bluetooth hearing aid, it's going to be, their noises will be going into all those things, not out into, the theater. And then they shouldn't have to check their phone or do anything like that. If a patron is using their phone for an accessible reason, they're 100% allowed to use their phone for an accessible reason. There was something that happened with Lion King where somebody was using like a captioning device, I believe, with their phone, and somebody on stage called them out thinking that they were taking pictures and they weren't. So I think we have to be a little bit more inclusive and realize that patrons may be using their phones for other reasons and not, if you're not going to be, using your accessible device from up here, you're going to be using it maybe from down here or on your lap. You're not going to be using it from up here. So we should be a little bit more, just kind when we're dealing with phones, because we have no idea they could be used as, a monitor for their diabetes or something like that. So we just kind of have to be a little bit more nicer on that. Let's see. I think we have one more question. Floating patron guides can help with device return. Yes, absolutely. So if there's a mobility device and we've got floating patron guides on, so there may be specific floating patron guides, which I think are called out to notify you guys of who they are in all your meetings. You'll see them with a lanyard as well that say floating patron guide. They are specifically there to help patrons with mobility devices, and if they need a device rented from the venue or if they have their own just navigating the building, they're there to help with that. So if there's any issues with the return of a device or leaving into the parking lot, please look to see if you can find the floating patron guides or even a floating mentor. And of course, if not, the front of house staff as well. So I think that's the last question I saw in here. Let me just make sure. And then let me just see if there's anything in the chat. Let's see, if using the phone app in person, will it be lit up? Yes, it can light up during a performance. I mean, maybe it's for a second or two just to check the volume and then that's it, and which is totally fine. Will there be a sensory friendly Frozen? No, Disney is not doing a sensory friendly Frozen for this run. And then the last question, does Talcott Mountain shifts count towards the minimum? Jeanette, can you pop on and just answer that? Because I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah, no, those don't count because they're not at the Bushnell.
They're not at the Bushnell. Perfect. Thank you. All right. So I think I have 3 minutes left. So I killed my time. So I'm very happy for myself. So the next portion of our little webinar is going to be going over the new Bushnell Tours to Go program. So we're going to take this off of my screen and I'm going to let Joe Marino come on, and he's going to talk to you guys a little bit about this new program that the tour guides have honestly completely implemented and how it came to be and where it's going. And I'm so excited. So Joe, off to you.
Hi, everybody. It's Joe. First of all, let me say, Kat, what a great job you did. That was a tremendous amount of work, and you must be so proud, as we all are, of what you do for the Bushnell and what the Bushnell does for everybody. So thanks so much for that. So hi, everybody. I'm one of the tour guides. There are actually 18 of us that are currently tour guides. And if you're ever interested in becoming a tour guide, it's now an application process. So just email volunteers@bushnell.org, and Jeanette will let you know what that is all about. So if you're interested in joining a group of us, we really have a good time. We do tons of tours. I think most of the people on this have taken one. So thanks for coming on one or many of them. And we hope you come back for more. The BTTG is the Bushnell Tour to Go. Now, this is something that has been out there for a while now. If you all know Clint Muller, Clint has been talking about this for years at our meetings. And last year we decided as a group, the bunch of us, that we wanted to get together and we wanted to have a BTTG. What is a BTTG? Well, we know that we have a ton of patrons who come to the Bushnell to see shows, or they come and see a tour, but there are some people who just cannot physically do the actual tour. They might be older, they may have mobility issues, they may just be too far away. So what a bunch of us did, we got 9 of us together and we created a group, and that group was an exploratory one that came up with the Bushnell Tour to Go. Just a shout out to everybody who was on there. So it was me, it was Clint, Mike, Joanne, Joan, Nancy, Carl, Judith Ann, and then a big shout out to Jim Henkel, who in his first year jumped on and not only was helping us out with everything, but is also the photographer, as he is for, seems like now, for all of the Bushnell. So when we show you this presentation in a few minutes, many, if not most, of these pictures you're going to see are Jim Henkel making them. So like I said, we started this in February. We were what we wanted to do, and we decided we wanted to be able to take the joy of the Bushnell to people around Connecticut. And we've tried to figure out how can we do it. Well, it took us about 10 months, but we finally got there. And what it is, it's a 45-minute presentation of our tour. We cover all of the things that we cover on a in-house tour, but in a PowerPoint presentation. The beauty of the presentation is that we are able to show things to folks seeing this that we don't even get to do when we are giving a tour. For instance, we also often talk about drama, the beautiful up there on the ceiling of the Mortensen, but it's still many, many feet away. With Jim's photographs, we're able to actually bring right into focus and to point out things where we just weren't able to do that. So we also, it's an interactive one where we have quizzes, we have little foolish things that I love and some of my tour guides don't love as much, but nevertheless, it's a way to invite people in to see what the Bushnell has to offer. And our hope is not only will they get a sense of what the Bushnell is from the tour to go, but then hopefully they may even be interested in coming down to see it in person, because seeing the Bushnell in person is like nothing else out there. So what happened was, after all our work, we showed it to everybody, we showed it to all the tour guides, and in November, marketing signed off on our tour to go. And then what they did is they put out a blast on social media and on email, and we already have 12 Bushnell tours to go that are scheduled from now through May. We even have one that's scheduled for, I believe it's October. And the reason we're sharing all this with you is because we hope for you that you, if you're interested, you may know people who may be interested as well. If they're ever interested, they can go on the website. You can send them to volunteers@bushnell.org, and Joan and Jeanette will help them out and setting one up. When we go out, we decided we wanted to have 2 tour guides, because as we're all trying to figure out how to use technology, one's there, but with 2 of us, we also get a couple of different perspectives on it. So it really is sort of a neat thing. The very first one we did was kind of beta tested here in Wethersfield, where I live. We went to the Wethersfield Library and we did a presentation, and Clint Muller and Joanne Marriott did an exceptional job, not only because they're great, but they had to do it in front of all of us, which was fantastic. So in a couple of weeks, actually next Friday, we have our very first one, which is going to be in Wallingford. I'm lucky enough to be able to be doing it with Joan Gentile. So we'll let you know how it's going. So as I look over my notes, I think that's the basic outline of what the Bushnell Tour to Go is. What we're going to do now is we're going to have Kat is going to start for us a bit of the video, and I'm going to talk you through I'm not going to give you a tour, but we're going to walk through almost all of it just so you can kind of get an idea of what we're seeing here and what folks will be seeing when we do the Bushnell tour to go. So Kat, if you can go to the first video, that would be great. What a nice way to invite everybody in. So as we move on, you can see we're welcoming everybody. Anybody recognize that person sitting at customer relations? We saw her before. So we will focus on some of the historical events and the historical people. If you look at the next video, you'll see that obviously we're going to be talking about Horace and we'll be talking about Dotha. We'll move on, Kat. So we can give information about Horace. And of course, Dotha right there. A big part of our tour starts out talking about the architecture. And just for you guys, as you're looking, some pictures that we unearthed in our research, and this is when the Bushnell was actually getting built. So you can see looking at that is the upper left-hand one there is a picture of where, imagine yourself being on stage and you can see looking up to the mezzanine and then up to the balcony. So we head on, Kat, to the next one. You'll take a look here when the Bushnell was getting ready to do one of their seasons. The Hartford Times actually did an entire paper just about what was happening at the Bushnell. Here's some ideas. We always have talked about this, but now we actually can show that to folks. And I've noticed that when we talk about Hartford, so many people have an affiliation with things like the Hotel Bond or G. Fox and Company and stuff that we all grew up with and remember fondly. And we wanted to include that because it was all very much a part of what the Bushnell is. What you're going to see is as we go through this tour, we are taking the same path that we would take if we were taking you on a regular tour. So we take you to the Promenade Gallery, and we really wanted to show that it actually sometimes works as a gallery. We continue moving through. We point out not only the East and West Bar, but other things as well. We head in next out here and we step this way so that we can talk about the Great Seal, the Grand Foyer. Again, everything that we would talk about is being shown here. You can, if you look down there at the bottom under Nubula. Oh, Kat, if you could just go back for a sec. Sorry about that. You can see Jim is up there taking a picture, trying to get that picture, and you see his shadow. Let's move on through, Kat. Thank you. We also will go to the Gray Lobby, talking about good old Helen and Harry Gray. And then we're gonna, if you've been on a tour, you know the next places we're heading to the elevator. I hope everybody got to hear the ding that was part of this. We, as a species of tour guides, are not great at all of this technical stuff, but we finally got the ding to happen. And then sometimes it happens and sometimes it doesn't happen. So hopefully you got to see and hear the ding. Let's move on, shall we? We head on up to the Hillier Suite. Some folks have forgotten that if you take a look over there in the upper left-hand corner, you can see the HB of Horace Bushnell. And I do believe that this picture is actually flipped when we're up there. HB is for people outside. You know, if you happen to be a 7-story person, you can look in that window and see the HB, but we wanted to point that out. So I had mentioned that we wanted to be able to use video. Oh, I forgot about this, just showing Dotha's view. But as the next one will show you, we're going to be heading into the projection room. Nope. See, this is why. All right, sorry about that. If you take a look at these, one of the things we do point out is that the very first couple of concerts that inaugurated Into the Bushnell, we always talk about them, and now we can actually show folks that it was a 3-day event in January of 1930. And of course, the Metropolitan Opera used to tour, and we can show them here that they were here that very first season in November as well. Now we're going to go into the projection room. So Jim Hankel went in with his video camera, and he's going to take us into the projection room, because one of the things we love so much is to be able to show everybody all of the tags that are on the wall here of all the different shows that have played here. We used to have so many more of these spotlights. Now they have been taken away, but we can still talk about all of that. I won't make you sit through all 90 seconds of that, but we just wanted to show you that we are utilizing video as well. And of course, being able to talk about the tags. And just wanted you to know that Jim Hankel, because he's no longer photographing for BTTG, has decided that he is going through and he is cataloging all of the tags that are up there. There are well over 100, I think around 160, and he's got almost all of them tagged. So if you happen to see Jim, talk to him about it and ask him about number 37. I don't know what it is, but I bet you he does. So let's move on. Again, there's the view from the projection room. And let's head down, please. Just the best. Let's move on. Next, we're going to be heading into the Severance room. And as Kat clicks through these, just take a second to look at the beauty, not only of the room, but of the photographs as well. Jim had to lay on the floor for that one. Thank you, Jim. And we'll keep going. This is something relatively new. I don't know if you've actually taken a moment to stop up there and take a look, but all of these beautiful artifacts that we've gotten about the history of the Bushnell. So next time you're up in the Severance room, if you want to take a look and see some of the history that's on display. We can keep going. The history here is really fascinating. Kat, would you mind going back just for a second, please, before we go into the hall? As you can see here, Paul Robeson sang here in 1931. It was actually the first anniversary of the Bushnell, and Paul Robeson, a very acclaimed opera singer who happens to be African American, was asked to sing here for the first anniversary. And then Marian Anderson was invited to perform here in 1937. She and Bill Mortensen were friends, and he was a big fan of her, so she came back in 1957 as well. So it's really a interesting time for us. And now we're going to head on into the Mortensen Hall. And as you can see, it's just absolutely stunning, no matter how many times you go in there. We tried the best we could to capture as much of the grandeur as we could. We'll keep moving on. You can see right here, they're loading in a show, and now we're going to play a little video for you. 20 hours for the load in of My Fair Lady in 53 seconds. Enjoy. Oh, we're just gonna, we don't have to see it again.
If
Although
only
it's
loading was
fascinating.
that easy, right, Joe?
Exactly. I don't care how many times I look at this picture, it's just fascinating, and I hope you enjoy Mortensen as much as I do. Let's move on, shall we? As I was referencing before, we have Drama by Barry Faulkner, and as you can look at the next couple of pictures, we can talk about it on an entire scale, but then we can also zoom in and show folks some of the detail that is in this beautiful building. So if we move on, you can see some of the things that are here. This one we like to point out, you've probably, if you've been on a tour, have heard about the hole created in the ceiling so that Phantom of the Opera could hang the chandelier. It's a whole lot easier to see this way than from the ground looking up to see if you can find it. The next time somebody's in for a show, why don't you show them where it is? Then we've got our Austin organ, number 1627. Again, we often talk about the Austin organ, but it's very rarely on stage. Here are a couple of pictures of those. As we move on, you're going to see, I believe the next one is the contract for the original Austin organ. And you can look down towards the bottom, you'll see they paid $45,000 for this organ. And as of 2009, it was worth almost $2 million. Something we very rarely get to do is go up into the loft where all of the organ pipes are. And I was lucky enough to go up there. Jim and I went up there and we were able to take some pictures. On the left there, you're going to see that door. That door is about 5 feet high, so you have to squish down to be able to get in there. The pipes range anywhere from basically a pencil size to 32 feet tall. It's an amazing place to be. Here you can see some of the pipes that we have. They are metal, they are wood. And then the question, how many pipes are there in the Bushnell organ? Well, 5,263 is the number we've all agreed upon. But as you can see, there are drums and tambourines and a whole bunch of other instruments as well. Then, like I said, if you look here to the left, you can see the 3 curtains at the top of the left page. That's where one of the bays where the pipes are. And then the picture on the right is actually taken from the bay. I held on to Jim. Jim put his camera out there and he took that picture. So we hope you enjoyed that. Can we move on, Kat? Thank you. Okay, now we're going to get on to the stage here. Many of you have been on the stage. Beautiful shot from the side. Let's keep moving through. As we move through, we get to tell the story of the ghost light as well. So when we are giving the tour, actually all 30 of these pictures will load one by one, so folks can try to yell out and tell. These are just some of the folks who have signed the wall that we had pictures of. So you can see from the upper left for Walter Cronkite all the way down to the bottom right with Gregory Peck. It's a fun little game and it's very interactive while people are watching along. And of course, we've had politicians of all stripes that have been here as well. We can keep moving through, please. This one, can you name the first Broadway show to play at the Bushnell? How many of you knew it was Knickerbocker Holiday? For one performance only. From what we understand, the show actually was out of town in Boston and was heading towards New York. And they came down to, was going to play in Hartford for a week. And there was a great rainstorm and a flood. The cast got here, supposedly only a rehearsal pianist, so they did one performance of the show while a rehearsal pianist played, and then it went on to Broadway to the Ethel Barrymore Theater. Here we see that we've got just some of the hundreds of shows that have played at the Bushnell. We keep moving on. We can talk about all the wonderful things happening for the loading dock, including, next please, the original production of Lion King in 2006. How many trailers? Shout it out. You're muted. And the answer is, of course, 31. Shall we keep going, please? And then here we have the stars dressing room, and folks can ask about different celebrities and the stories we can tell them. Let's keep going. We'll get you through this. The electrician's room, which most people will remember days after and months after. Here's some photographs. We can just head on through. Next one, of course. And then we're going to show some of the wonderful signatures that are on the wall. In this one alone here, we've got Nat and Natalie Cole there on the right, Ed McMahon, Al Franken. Next, please. This is, like I said, we're continuing to work on our show. This one is a slide that has a little bit of a hiccup in it, but we're going to get it right. That's good old Rodney, and even Rodney doesn't get respect at the Bushnell. And we can move on through 4 of these. How about this? Can anybody tell me who that is? Whose signature that is? And we'll give some hints. And Kat, if you can click through, that's Katharine Hepburn, the local gal, local girl. We report, you decide. Some of the other signatures we have out in the lobbies. And if Kat will click on it, she'll show you that here's Rita Moreno's and Betty Davis, Dan Rather, and Liberace. Now we're going to head on in to Belding and some of the autographs. Loretta Swit, Diana Ross, Bob Newhart. And then head into the Belding Theater. Some shots of the theater. How cool is that? You are there. And as we continue to move through, just some more pictures. There's the symphony. We have our glorious ceiling that we can talk about. Did you know that Charles Nelson Riley was the first performer on the Belding stage? Also was a paid usher here at the Bushnell. We don't often get down to the dressing rooms. Here we can show them. I know some tour guides do take us there, but this way we can show those dressing rooms as well. And our final steps up to the Bushnell suite. Moving forward to the Great Hall. The Chihuly. Some more pictures as well. And that's us. The last thing that we're going to show you, we're not going to show you all of it because I know we're pressed for time, but the next slide is actually a letter that Dotha wrote to the people of Hartford. And then for the 90 for 90 anniversary for the Bushnell, the Bushnell Bushnell, I'm not quite sure if it was marketing or who it was, but they actually created a video of reading the letter, Dotha's letter to everyone. So Kat, if you could go ahead and play that, please.
Joe, do you know how long the video is? Because I think we're actually pretty good on time.
Sure. I would love to show it to everybody.
Yeah, I'll play the whole thing. That's good.
Great,
All right.
thank you.
Enjoy, everybody.
Enjoy, everybody. If anybody would like to see it, that is on YouTube. So you can just look up Dotha Bushnell or Dotha Letter, and you could be able to see that as well. Here's all the folks that worked on that, and there's all of us. So that, in a nutshell, is what we have here for the BTTG as it's known. I was wondering, like I said earlier, if you by any chance know somebody who might want to do this, you know, an organization that might be interested or would be interested in having the BTTG come out to do a tour for you, we would love to do it. So you can contact Joan and Jeanette. And thanks so much for listening, everybody.
Thank you, Joe. Appreciate it. So that was the last little bit. Now we're going to look to see if there's any questions. There's
Just
one question.
Kat, one quick thing.
yeah.
Thanks, Joe. But one thing I just wanted to add, if someone is asking you about the Bushnell Tours to Go program, please direct them to our website, bushnell.org. And if you go to the visit tab, just like any tour request, there's a form, and we revised it so that they can choose either an in-person tour or a tour to go. So just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you. So I think we had a lot of applause and nice tour. Well done. Thank you, Joe. Like just saying how amazing everything was. I think the only question, again, if anybody has any questions, feel free to write them in the Q&A section or in the chat. And then if not, if you guys have any further questions, we'll be emailing out a form as well. The only thing is there a plan to have a video that people can view on demand with the narration included? I mean, you never know.
Yes. Let's say yes. We will work towards that.
Wow. Love that. Goals. Are there fees for the BTTG?
No, just like regular tours, they're free of charge.
Yes. And we also have a little business card that has a QR code saying, you know, if you want to, I think it says like something about like, please give us your feedback on how great your tour was. And then if they complete the survey on how much whether it's in person or on the go tour, they get an automatic response back saying, if you want to donate, click on this link, or if you want to like sign up for our newsletter, click on this link. So even though it's free, if some people want to, you know, give them money because they love it so much. So we always just kind of will push them to donations as well. Let me check. Another well done. We got another well done. Let's see. I think we're all good with questions. Okay. Well, again, thank you all so much for joining our annual webinar. Like Jeanette said at the beginning, and we've said a couple of times, we will be emailing you guys a link to the recorded version of this webinar within the next week or so, along with a link to a form if you want to ask any further questions on Jeanette's general reminders, on any of my accessible services, or on Joe's BTTG demo. So again, thank you all so much. Have a great rest of your week, and we will see you very soon at the Bushnell.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
Bye.
Bye.